A commodity expert weighs in on the 2020 market outlook. Michigan Farm Bureau's Leadership Development Program kicks into high gear. And Michigan Agricultural Commodities' Chris Betts will join us with a market update. I'm Janelle Brose, and this is Farm News 5.
Farm News 5 is brought to you by Ford.
The days of booming commodity markets are behind us, and market analysts like Mike Mock, owner of Northwest Ohio's M. Mock Consulting, LLC, believes that's where they'll stay. Mock made the prediction during the February 6th Michigan Agricultural Commodities Outlook Conference, where he encouraged growers to actively watch the markets for opportunities, but warned they shouldn't expect a return to the glory days of 2007 to 2013.
We just don't see any indication of a major commodity boom at all. Overall, inflation is very muted. We see an environment moving forward where interest rates will probably stay relatively cheap. That's good news for growers. The borrowing costs should come down. But the concern, and what I try to convey today, is that I do think we'll occasionally have rallies that are typically either weather-related somewhere in the world or some sort of a political development, for example, the Chinese Phase 1 trade agreement, that may give us opportunities to sell, but as opposed to a spectacular rally that elevated prices in that 07 to 13 period, I look for something a little more contained, and we want to make sure that when we get rallies like that, that we respond to them. And probably the best example I can give to you is the wheat rally that we've had recently. I mean, wheat's rallied basically $1 from the lows around Labor Day to where we were just a few weeks ago, and we think that's an opportunity for growers to sell not only 2020 wheat, but even start nibbling at the 2021 as well.
The soybean market is heavily dependent on the Phase 1 trade deal with China, implementation of which, Mock says, is going to be impacted by the duration of the coronavirus.
The problem with the bean market is where we're sitting today is that both old and new look relatively cheap to us. We've had a pretty good break in prices, and given that, I'm not particularly anxious to do something today, and I would say that's particularly true in the new crop. As far as old crop, we may get into a situation, if the virus drags on, if we get into a situation where this lags or drags itself out into the spring or early summer, we may see growers that have to go to a different kind of program. What I've suggested quite often is just metering out and selling the calendar as much as the price. So probably of all the markets, I would say that probably applies to old crop beans the most. If China steps in and buys beans at a pace they used to from the U.S., we'll get some sort of rebound. The question is, will that occur in the time frame that the old crop farmer needs to have it? So that being the case, I might be a little more patient in new beans and might have to set up a marketing plan to clean up some of my old crop beans over the next 2 or 3, 4 months.
Mock also addressed the impact year-round availability of E15 is having on corn consumption.
We get weekly reports from the ethanol industry, and I was excited to see yesterday that we had a combination where stocks went down even when ethanol production went up. So the product is moving, and we're getting some state-by-state data, and Minnesota in particular showed a healthy jump in E15. So the situation there is where we have the infrastructure in place. You know, if we have enough stations out there selling it, you know, maybe we'll get a situation where that will take off. But in the big picture, that's a bit of a band-aid, but it was certainly good news and nice to see. The concern I have is that you know, the long-term viability, the 5, 10-year, 15-year outlook for ethanol is a little more in question depending on how rapidly we go to electronic vehicles.
If you want a car from a company that's been building them for 115 years, get a Ford. If you want a car with driver assist technology, get a Ford. You're going to want a Ford.
Michigan Farm Bureau's premier leadership development program, ProFILE, is off to a strong start. The 2021 class kicked off the 15-month program with a 2-day meeting last month that included, among other things, a crash course on Michigan Farm Bureau's history, structure, and mission, and a visit to the Michigan headquarters of workwear giant Carhartt.
As part of Michigan Farm Bureau's ProFILE program, we went to the Carhartt headquarters in Dearborn, Michigan, which was an awesome opportunity to learn from many of their senior leaders about different aspects of the business, how they talk to their customers, and how they're constantly innovating as a legacy, more than century-old company to keep innovating for new generations.
When the Farm Bureau approached us a couple months ago about this program, we thought it was a great opportunity to talk directly to our consumers about our business, because those in the farming industry are really key to Carhartt as a whole.
I thought it was a really interesting and educational experience. For me, it had a lot of connections to some of the work I do with Michigan 4-H and the thinking and design process and entrepreneurship. They really embodied do, reflect, apply. That's the philosophy for 4-H. So it was interesting to see that there's adults doing that, and that there are real world applications for some of the things that we're teaching with kids.
One of the most unique things that I took away from our time at Carhartt is the importance of talking to your customers. It was really interesting to hear them talk about how they go out to job sites and talk to customers and potential customers about what they need in their workwear, and then how they'll build something and then pilot it with their customers to see how it's working if it's a new product, and then how they're constantly taking feedback, whether that's in-person interviews or online forums, and they're just constantly getting that feedback and adapting, and I think that is so relevant to those of us who work in ag. Obviously we have a unique customer base, is that everybody is buying our products, but just going back to how important it is to constantly be talking to those folks about what's important to them, what's working, what's not working, and how can we adapt or adjust or talk to them more, so that we have this constant dialogue going on between us and our stakeholders.
Many farmers have questions about crop insurance. The sale closing date for crop insurance in Michigan is March 15th. Visit fosterswift.com to learn what Michigan farmers need to know about crop insurance in 2020.
It's not every day a former governor and ag secretary wins a Powerball drawing, but that's exactly what happened to Tom Vilsack recently. The former Iowa governor and ag secretary from 2009 to 2017 didn't win the full jackpot, but did claim a $150,000 prize. He told a Des Moines TV station that he decided to play on a whim and actually forgot about buying the ticket and remembered 10 days after the drawing to check his numbers. And now with a look at the latest market activity, here is Michigan Ag Commodities' Chris Betts.
Thanks, Janelle. The latest WASDE report was released on Tuesday of this week, but did little to shake markets. The USDA left U.S. corn ending stocks unchanged, while soybeans and wheat were adjusted lower, with increased export expectations for each. Doubt, however, remains that the U.S. can reach the USDA's export targets. South American soybean harvest is underway and drawing Chinese business despite the Phase 1 trade deal, as it should given the discount of Brazilian values to the Gulf. For wheat, U.S. stocks were cut to a 5-year low by the USDA on Tuesday, but world stocks remain record large, which will mean stiff competition for U.S. exports. This has been evident in recent international tenders that have been absent of U.S. wheat. A firmer U.S. dollar will also not help U.S. exports. The coronavirus has been shrugged off by markets of late, which has helped the Dow Jones Industrial Average and the S&P 500 score new record highs. Commodities have felt some support, but specific to grains and oilseeds, traders are forced to face limiting fundamentals. For more market information, go to michag.com. With Michigan Agricultural Commodities, I'm Chris Betts.
For more news and video, visit MichiganFarmNews.com and the Michigan Farm Bureau channel on YouTube. With Farm News 5, I'm Janelle Brose. Have a great week of farming.